making it. If you were in California, you would have been taking edibles after dinner last night as opposed to alcohol. And there'll be more people here if that was the case, because the hangover isn't quite as bad. So thanks for making it. ECH is a small fund, private fund based in the UK. We're based in central London. We've been in operation since the middle of 2018. It was founded by two main guys, Rob Reed and Stephen Murphy, who have both been in the cannabis market for around 3 years. 3 years, by the way, in the cannabis market is like 15 years of real life. You know, it's that fast paced. So these guys are seriously experienced. They've been in operation over in Canada, which is clearly the most mature market globally still. And they've come back over to London to set up what will become Europe's leading cannabis fund over the next 18 months. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about ECH and our portfolio of assets. And then after that, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the European opportunity. And then, because it's a small group, I'll also take a few questions at the end of the discussion. So I got into cannabis a couple of years ago. I've been in operation in marketing businesses and strategy companies for the last 10 years or so. What really got me into the space was looking over at the States and Canada and seeing how quickly the medical and recreational markets were changing. I decided to test the market at the beginning of 2018 with a range of CBD wellness products. And a few months after that, I found Rob Reed and Stephen Murphy just setting up the fund, and I sold the business to them and came in as Chief Digital Officer and Partner of ECH. My remit being, there's actually a few hats. One of them is I go around Europe looking for new innovation and technology in the space for us to invest in. And I also founded with the ECH team the first online education platform for doctors' education in the UK, which is now rolling out globally. As well as that, I sit on a few other boards within the organisation. So ECH, what are we about? First and foremost, we want to make it acceptable and accessible for patients and for consumers and businesses to operate in the European space. We do that by looking to build the ecosystem, the infrastructure for the European market to work on. What we first started to do is look around and say, okay, what businesses can we purchase to actually make this come to life? And it didn't take long to realize that the industry is in such infancy that it's very difficult to find any business that comes up trumps within Europe. So we decided that the only way for us to be able to push this industry forward is to incubate our own business ventures. So we started last year looking at the type of businesses that we need to operate in order to build this ecosystem. And I'll take you through the portfolio now. The model for our incubation is we either do it 100% with the team in-house at ECH, or we find suitable partners where we take a majority stake in the concept. So here's the first one. Now, to make it accessible and acceptable for cannabis in the UK and Europe, you aren't just looking at the medical side, you're also looking at the recreational and social side. Clearly, there's a CBD wellness market. It's been growing for the last 18 months. The CTA, the Cannabis Trade Association in the UK, throw figures around on the value and the usage of CBD products in the UK. Last count, it's around 1 million people taking it on a regular basis. The market's probably worth around £4 or £5 million in the UK today. But it's oils. It's 10 ml tincture bottles, brown tincture bottles of bitter tasting CBD oil. If anyone's tasted it in this room, you'll know it isn't pleasant, but it does serve a purpose. It helps for anxiety, stress, inflammation, and so on, sleep. Our task is to make it more mainstream. So what we've done is we've said, how do we come up with a product that uses CBD, that focuses strategically on CBD, but can be consumed by the masses. So we came up with the first UK CBD snack bar focused on mind health as opposed to energy for the body. And you can go to the next road along from here, Essex Road to Planet Organic, and go and buy one of these today. We put 250,000 into this seed money. We're about to start a new raise. It's the first time we're going outside to find investors that meet our criteria for the next round. We're looking for $1 million to get us through the next 9 to 12 months roadway. Cannabis Europa is at the forefront of the medical cannabis events in Europe. It is focused on the business side of the industry. We launched this last year in London in the Barbican. February this year, February the 8th, we're in Paris. We have a week's worth of cannabis events coming up in London in June the 24th, I believe the date is. And really, this is an opportunity to network. So if you're interested in investing in this space, I highly recommend going to Cannabis Europa. It's one of the best, if not the best, curated productions in Europe, maybe one of the best in the world. We constantly have interest from Canadian events businesses looking to invest into Cannabis Europa. The type of people you can expect to see there are from the business world, they're regulators, they're policymakers. It's anyone that's anyone in this industry. The Academy of Medical Cannabis is the business that I'm MD of. It's been written by our Director of Education, Professor Mike Barnes, who's at the forefront of cannabinoid medicine in Europe. He produced 12 modules, which is the 101 for any healthcare professional to learn how to better consult and, if you have the ability to prescribe medical cannabis. It's a really important tool for us. You know, it's not a commercial entity as such. We make money from sponsorship opportunities, but really for us, this is our opportunity to open access to medical professionals. There's so much stigma attached to medical cannabis still that you really have to push quite aggressively to let them see that there is another way, there is an alternative. And for us, this is our opportunity to educate doctors and, as a consequence, to really understand who in the UK and other countries where we launch this product, understand who they are, who's interested, what profession they've got. And as a consequence, at some point later down the line, talk to these people and encourage them into some of the other entities that we've got to ensure that patients, wherever they are in the world, get access to medical cannabis. And then, as a consequence of having the online education platform, why not have a chain of medical cannabis clinics? So we launched the first medical cannabis clinic in the UK about 3-4 weeks ago up in Manchester. We have our Harley Street clinic opening next month. We have Birmingham opening the month after, and we intend to close the year with around 6 or 7 clinics in the UK. We then have aggressive European rollout plans in 2020. Now, we have 6 or 7 doctors working for us within these clinics already. They are the only prescribers of medical cannabis in the UK as we stand here today. So any script, any prescription that you hear of in the news being prescribed to either a child or an adult for different conditions, it would have come from our physician. And then Astral Health. Astral Health is strategically one of the most important ventures that we've started to date. It's the newest venture, one of the newest ventures, the newest venture in our portfolio. Astral Health is our way of importing medical cannabis to prescribing physicians through pharmacy in the UK and soon other parts of Europe. The venture is fairly straightforward. We are the medical cannabis specialists. We team up with specials importers. We have a JV with one of the leading specials importers in the UK. We bring product in via that route. And as a consequence of that, we can then fulfill prescriptions with pharmacies that are obtaining those from their patients. And finally, but probably the most important asset in our portfolio, the flagship organization within ECH, Prohibition Partners. Prohibition Partners was founded by Rob Reed and Stephen Murphy before ECH, the fund, started. It's one of the leading global data and consultancy and analytics businesses in the space. They produce free reports. So the purpose of this talk, you might have thought, was to give you a bit more clarity on the intricacies of the landscape of Europe. I'll leave that to this free report. It does it in 220 odd pages. You can go onto the Prohibition Partners website. You can download this today. And it will give you real depth of insight by country across Europe, what the status is on medical cannabis, what the status is on recreational cannabis, what the opportunity is by patient size and consumption numbers over the next 10 years. But I'll just go into a few slides that have been written by Prohibition Partners. Now, I apologize that I'm not the one that actually put these slides together. Stephen Murphy sends his apologies that he can't be here, but I'll try and do my best for you. And at the end of this, we can take questions, and again, I'll try and answer those as best I can. So where are we today? Well, last count, this is actually outdated already. I think we're around 20 European countries where medical cannabis is legal. The UK became a legal market November the 1st last year. And pretty much on a weekly basis now, we're hearing news from different parts of Europe where governments are discussing how can they change policy and reschedule medical cannabis. It's one thing rescheduling, it's another thing then ensuring that patients can get the medicine they need. So this tells part of the story, but we are very, very early to the party. If in this audience there's people thinking, you know, maybe I'm a bit late, you've been reading the news, you've been seeing what happens in Canada on a regular basis and CSC and so on and so forth, you're not too late. You know, this is really just getting going now. Sure, you could have made some money already, but there's huge opportunities down the road, and what this shows us is that the appetite at government level is there. It's there because these are democracies and they listen to their populations, and the population are calling out for medical cannabis. But moving from it being legal to actually getting cannabis in patients' hands is a very, very tricky journey. And we'll touch on the supply chain just in a minute. CBD, so medical cannabis and CBD are very different. CBD, the wellness side of the industry, actually is a lot more legal than the medical cannabis side. Now, we have, anyone that's keeping up to speed with EU novel foods will know that there are some large issues at the moment going through at EU level on whether or not CBD should be reclassified or at least the classification that currently exists today imposed, stopping or at least halting momentarily the growth of the CBD market. Now, we don't know where that's going to land, but those that are buoyant in this space are pretty much setting their own rules, and they're waiting to be told otherwise. Now, that's interesting, right? You know, a market that's built around the industry pushing it forward at the pace that they want to go at and not stopping until the regulators tell them otherwise. And that's been one of the catalysts for the market opening up as quickly as it has over the last couple of years. So long may that continue. But in the next month, we'll know where we are on EU novel food. Recreational is a very different topic. So recreational is so THC, the psychoactive ingredient found in the cannabis plant. When you can consume that recreationally, legally, we are in a very different place. We are where Canada would be. We would be where Canada currently are, should I say, the first G7 country to go recreationally legal last year in October. And when that happens, you can rest assured that every FMCG and food and beverage player in the UK or whatever country is recreational, they will be involved in cannabis in some way. So just quickly on the cannabis supply chain. What you can see along the top: cultivation, harvest, processing, and manufacturing. This is like the gold rush. This is the spades, pickaxes and spades. Over the last few years in Canada and other countries where they've allowed for cultivation of medical cannabis, the first three elements of the supply chain have been the real focus of growth in the industry. The inflated prices that you're seeing attached to some of the LPs, the licensed producers, cultivators in Canada, come down to the promise of what these guys can produce in the next couple of years. In Europe, this is just opening. Cultivation, harvesting, processing, and manufacturing is just beginning. So what you've seen in Canada for the last 4 or 5 years, you're going to see in Europe over the next 2-3 years. And it's the Canadian LPs, the smart ones, that are now moving into the European space. So they're the ones in Germany this year that just had the approval to build cultivation in Germany. And they're also the ones that are steamrolling into other parts of Europe aggressively. Now, what does that mean? It means that their share price is going to keep going up because the opportunity is going to keep improving for them. But it also means that they're setting a standard where other European companies that are looking to also get into the space can look and follow. It won't be as easy for businesses that haven't got quite as deep pockets as those Canadian LPs, but there is huge opportunity for European business to step into the light now and to work hard to build some kind of cultivation that can give countries autonomy over the growth and supply of medical cannabis to their population, as opposed to being concerned with how you export enough product in to satisfy demand. The regulation, compliance, logistics, and quality analysis really hasn't picked up too much yet. There's great opportunities in this space. I see probably 2 or 3 businesses in Europe every week at the moment who have got either a concept or have started to formulate a business idea that ticks one of these boxes. Now, this is where technology starts to come into its own. The seed to sell process, it needs to be carefully monitored. We're talking about a narcotic. And anyone that can step into this space and can make some kind of splash with seed to sell, I believe will be a £1 billion or £1 billion business in the next 2 years. And then finally, retail and pharmacy and patient and consumer. Now, we're going to touch on some of the businesses, some of the big FMCG and drinks and food businesses in a second that are already looking to target patients and consumers. And we can see also that from a retail perspective, especially from the CBD side, they're already starting to make inroads with cannabis in the UK. So Holland & Barrett's one of the biggest sellers of CBD currently in the UK. Boots have just started to list a CBD product. And when it comes to medical cannabis, again, we see businesses on a weekly basis. We see pharmacists on a weekly basis, should I say, who are investigating how can they become our version of a dispensary for medical cannabis. So how can they become specialist medical cannabis pharmacies? And they're going to be big business in the next few years. So here's just a little bit about the type of use of cannabis in different products. Cosmetics is actually a fascinating area to be in. If, for whatever reason, the EU novel food does come into effect, it won't affect any topical product. So you can put CBD isolate or cannabis CBD full spectrum plant into a topical product that you put onto the top of your skin, transdermal, and you can keep selling that product. So we're just scratching the surface on topicals currently, and I believe that in the next 12 months, the CBD topical market will be worth probably around 20 to 25 million in the UK and probably around 250 million across Europe. Cannabis and food. You saw our snack bar, which, as I say, if you're interested in investing in, there's an opportunity, there's a window opening very shortly. It will be, cannabis and food will be one of the top trends this year. You can't go to a food and drinks event without seeing at least half a dozen CBD businesses that have just set up. Over in the States, last month or the month before, the standout trend was CBD in food and drink. And when it comes to alcohol, well, the fastest growing segment on trade is non-alcoholic beverage, alcohol-free beers, that kind of product. The reason why so many of the large drinks companies are investing in cannabis businesses in Canada is because they recognize that the sales they're getting on their alcoholic drinks is dipping. And it's dipping because cannabis, well, there's a few reasons, but one of the main ones is cannabis products are starting to come into the limelight. And this is a growing trend. This is a growing trend in the US. It's a growing trend in Canada. Canada are just about to open drinks and edibles, and you'll see a huge spike in businesses that have invested heavily into that area. And in Europe, we're going to see the same happen in the next 12 to 18 months. And here's just a bit more about that. So you can see in states, US states that have become legal for cannabis, there's been a decline for 15%. You know, this is only in the last year or so. 3 years after recreational legalization in Colorado, cannabis sales have overtaken alcohol sales. Cannabis sales have overtaken alcohol sales. It's crazy. And then 1.5 years recreationally legal in Canada, again, we're expecting to see exactly the same happen there. And this is just a snapshot of the type of brands that are already in the space or are very seriously looking at investing in the next couple of months. You can expect to see this double, I would say, by this time next year, if not triple. It's that fast-paced. And anyone that's selling tobacco will be looking aggressively at how they can change, move direction, come up with a CBD flower tobacco product, a vape product using THC or CBD. They're all in the space already, or if they're not, they will be within the next year. And when it comes to the UK, we currently have a few businesses that are listed on the Next exchange, Sativa Investment being one of them. What we can expect to see this year is the first couple of AIM-listed cannabis businesses. You can also expect to see lots more companies start to float on some of the other European markets. We forecast 20 plus IPOs across Europe. I think, to be honest, that's conservative. We were in Berlin last week, and the appetite there for IPO is very, very interesting indeed. I reckon we'll probably see another 7 or 8 happen there in the next 6 months. And currently, the finance solutions, apart from the IPO, have been private equity. So private money is going in, people are getting in before the IPO rounds, and those that are getting in just before the IPO rounds are in an extremely interesting place. You can see from the Canadian growth that the hike in valuations can reach up to 250% in 12 months, some more. It's clearly volatile, but things are just opening, so we are going to see a spike. It's going to keep going up and up and up for the next 2 years. So I strongly advise, if you're not investing, you should be looking to invest very, very quickly. Thank you. We've got time for quick questions?
Hi. Yeah. Which parts of the cannabis industry would you say has the best risk reward in terms of investing?
This industry hasn't hasn't come out of technology. It started from the plant, as opposed to lots of other industries that have formed in the last 10 years that have been very focused on technology. I think if you're a wise technology investor, you should be looking at European technology cannabis investments. We are in such infancy in that area of the industry that there's opportunities to be the first to market if the concept's right, and there's also opportunities to cannibalize or monopolize the market with those technologies if they serve the right purpose for the infrastructure. So I will be looking directly at technology in Europe.
I see from the press there's a shortage of CBD and also the discovery of fake CBD. How do you see this impacting confidence in the market?
Yeah, look, regulatory frameworks need to change, clearly. We're coming out of the black market. We're in a grey market. Regulators, policymakers, they're trying to catch up. You know, they aren't moving as quickly as the market's moving. So we have problems with bad quality product coming into the country. We have problems with labeling. We have lots of issues with this. There isn't a shortage. That couldn't be further from the truth. You know, the stuff you read in the media about that is not accurate at all. We can get to tens of kilos extremely quickly, you know, in this country. The real challenge is how do we work with policymakers? How do we work with regulators to help impose a new system for regulating CBD products so that consumers can feel confident and reassured that what they're buying is actually of good standard and actually will help them in the way that they're looking for it to help them. Okay, thank you.